Tonight, the rain taps softly against the window, a quiet rhythm that carries us into the shadows of the human mind, where darkness festers and innocence vanishes. Let us begin with a story few have heard, a tale that lingers like a cold whisper in the night, the disappearance of Jeremiah Huger, a 4-year-old boy who vanished from a Bronx sandbox in 1985. In the summer of 1985, Jeremiah Huger was just another child laughing in the afternoon sun, his small hands digging into the warm sand of a playground behind his grandmother's apartment on LaFontaine Avenue. He was a bright-eyed boy with long, curly brown hair and a slight bow to his left leg, a scar on his forearm marking him as uniquely his own. The playground was alive with the chatter of children, a safe haven where mothers watched from nearby windows. But something shifted that day, an unseen fracture in the ordinary. A man approached, his voice cutting through the laughter, calling Jeremiah by name as if he knew him. The boy looked up, curious, trusting, and in a heartbeat, the stranger's hands closed around him. He was gone, snatched from the sandbox, leaving only silence where his giggles had been. What drove this man to target a child, to know Jeremiah's name, to steal him in broad daylight? Was it a fleeting impulse, a twisted obsession, or a calculated plan rooted in some deeper malice? The answers remained locked in the shadows, but that moment marked the descent of an unknown predator into a darkness that would haunt a family forever. The abduction was chilling in its simplicity, but its most unforgettable detail was the precision of it all. The man didn't hesitate, didn't fumble. He called Jeremiah by name, a detail that pierced through the chaos of the playground. It wasn't random. He knew who he was taking. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act, but a deliberate strike, as if the stranger had watched, waited, and chosen his moment. The other children froze, their small voices silenced by shock, as the man vanished with Jeremiah, leaving behind a sandbox half filled with forgotten toys, a scene frozen in time like a photograph faded by grief. How did this stranger slip away so easily? The Bronx in 1985 was a bustling maze, its streets alive with noise and movement. The man melted into the crowd, just another face in a city too busy to notice. He exploited the blind spot of a community that trusted its own, where a playground was a sanctuary, not a hunting ground. No one expected a child to vanish in the middle of the day, surrounded by friends. The police were called, but the trail was already cold. Flyers went up, bearing Jeremiah's smiling face, his light blue shirt, and white sneakers with blue stripes described in desperate detail. But the city swallowed the lead. The man's identity remained a ghost, his motives a void. For years, the case lingered, untouched by progress, as if the world itself had forgotten Jeremiah's name. The capture never came. No suspect was named, no arrest made. The man who took Jeremiah Huger dissolved into the ether, leaving behind a mystery that gnawed at investigators. The New York City Police Department chased tips, over 5,000 in the first year alone, but each lead crumbled to dust. The playground, once a place of joy, became a monument to loss, its sandbox untouched by new laughter. The lack of an Amber Alert system in 1985 meant no immediate broadcast, no citywide alarm to trap the abductor before he could vanish. The world moved slower then, and a predator slipped through its cracks. Today, Jeremiah Huger remains missing, his fate a question mark etched into the hearts of those who loved him. Age-progressed images show him as he might be now, a man in his 40s, but they are only guesses, fragile hopes against a tide of uncertainty. The man who took him could be anywhere living a quiet life, or long gone, his secret buried with him. His secret buried with him. The rain falls harder now, blurring the edges of the playground in our minds, and as Jeremiah's story fades like a dream half remembered, another shadow emerges from the mist. In a quiet California town, a girl named Michaela Garrett rode her scooter to a market, unaware that evil waited in the morning light. On November 19, 1988, Michaela, just 9 years old, was a spark of light blonde hair, blue eyes, her pearl-colored feather earrings catching the sun. She and her friend Katrina headed to the Rainbow Market in Hayward, 2 blocks from home, their scooters clattering against the pavement. They parked them by the door, grabbed sodas, and stepped back outside, carefree. But something was wrong. Katrina's scooter had been moved, now resting near a battered cream-colored sedan in the parking lot. Michaela, ever helpful, went to retrieve it. As she bent down, a man emerged from the car, his arms snaking around her waist. She screamed, a sound that froze Katrina in place, but he was too fast. He threw Michaela into the car and sped off, the tires screeching south on Mission Boulevard. What drove this man to snatch a child in broad daylight, to plan such a brazen act? Was it a compulsion that had simmered for years, or a sudden, monstrous urge? The line between ordinary and unthinkable blurred in that moment, and Michaela's life was forever altered. The crime's signature was its audacity, a scene so vivid it burned into memory. The abductor had moved the scooter deliberately, luring Michaela to his car like a trap set for prey. His face, described by Katrina as pockmarked, with dirty blonde hair and fox-like blue eyes, became the stuff of nightmare. He didn't hide, didn't skulk in shadows. He struck in a busy parking lot, under the gaze of witnesses, as if daring the world to stop him. The image of Michaela's scream, her small body lifted off the ground, lingered like a wound that wouldn't heal, a cinematic horror etched into Hayward's quiet streets. He evaded capture by exploiting the chaos of the moment. The market was a hub of activity, cars coming and going, no one expecting a kidnapping at 10:15 a.m. The sedan, described as old and run down, possibly splattered with cement, blended into the working-class landscape of the Bay Area. Initial confusion helped him. A store clerk gave police a wrong description, sending them after a man with a mustache in a burgundy car. For 2 crucial days, the trail was muddied, the real abductor a slender man in his 20s, in a white t-shirt slipping further away. Flyers blanketed the San Francisco Bay Area, and Joe Montana himself pleaded for Michaela's return, but the leads dwindled. The police followed thousands of tips, searched hillsides by helicopter, but the man was a phantom, his car a ghost in the traffic. Decades passed with no answers until December 2020, when a name surfaced. David Mish, a convicted killer already serving time for another murder. Charged with Michaela's abduction and murder, he was linked through painstaking investigation. Though her body was never found, the case, long cold, had been cracked open by relentless detectives and new evidence, perhaps a fingerprint from the scooter or witness's memory sharpened by time. Mish's unmasking came too late for justice to feel complete, but it gave a face to the monster who haunted Hayward. Mish remains in prison, his fate sealed by a life sentence, but Michaela's story leaves us adrift. Is she truly gone? Or does some faint hope linger that she, like others, might still be found? The rain softens, its patter a lullaby for the lost, and as Michaela's face fades into the night, another child's laughter echoes from a distant field. The descent was as sudden as the Arkansas twilight. Billy Jack Links, a man in his 60s with a history of troubling encounters with children, had been drifting through life as a truck driver, his past marked by minor offenses that hinted at deeper shadows. But on that June evening in 1995, something snapped. Or perhaps it had been building for years, a compulsion to take what wasn't his, to shatter a family's peace. Morgan, in her Gap shirt and denim shorts, her blonde ponytail bouncing as she chased fireflies, represented pure innocence. Lynx, idling in his red Ford Ranger with a white camper shell, watched from the shadows of the parking lot. As the game ended and the crowd thinned, he struck, luring or snatching her in a moment when Colleen's eyes were turned. The ordinary outing became a gateway to horror. Lynx crossing into a realm of unspeakable violence that would define his legacy. What made Morgan's abduction unforgettable was the eerie silence of it all, a vanishing act played out under the glow of stadium lights. She was last seen emptying sand from her shoes by Colleen's car, a mundane act turned tragic. No scream pierced the night, no struggle, witnessed only the faint hum of departing cars and the flicker of fireflies. The red truck, described by a teenage witness as having a dull chrome bumper and Arkansas plates, became the phantom vehicle of nightmares, its camper shell a potential tomb on wheels. But the most haunting detail was the hair strands found years later in Lynx's truck, tested in 2024 with advanced DNA that matched Morgan's profile for someone closely related. It painted a gruesome picture. A child trapped in that confined space, her presence lingering like a spectral trace, long after the truck had roared away into the Ozark Hills. Lynx hid in plain sight by exploiting the rural simplicity of Alma, a town of 3,000 where everyone knew each other, and strangers were noted but not always suspected. He lived just 15 miles away in Van Buren, a coffee salesman turned drifter, his life unremarkable enough to evade early scrutiny. The initial sketch of the suspect, a Hispanic man, 2338, with a mustache and slicked back hair, didn't match Lynx, who was white, older, and clean-shaven, throwing investigators off. No Amber Alert existed. The system wouldn't launch for another year. Tips flooded in over 7,000 in the first months, but Lynx continued his routines, even attempting another abduction in August 1995, grabbing an 11-year-old at a gas station before she escaped. Arrested for that, he served just over a year, then faded back into obscurity. The FBI interviewed him in 1996 about Morgan, but he denied involvement, and without evidence, he walked free. For decades, he lived quietly, dying in prison in 2000 for an unrelated conviction. His secrets varied until 2021, when the FBI named him a person of interest after re-examining his truck, vacuumed for fibers in 1995, but yielding new clues with modern 1995, but yielding new clues with modern tech. The unmasking came slowly, like a fog lifting over the Arkansas River. In 2019, Alma police reopened the case, spurred by Colleen's unyielding advocacy through the Morgan Nick Foundation. They retested evidence from Lynx's truck hairs overlooked before. By October 2024, Othram Labs confirmed a DNA match. The hairs were consistent with Morgan or her maternal relative. Lynx, dead for 24 years, was officially linked, his attempt on another child and witness descriptions aligning. But Morgan's body remained unfound, searches of his old properties yielding nothing. The revelation brought answers, but no closure. The predator, unmasked posthumously, slipping beyond earthly justice. Lynx met his end in 2000, succumbing to illness in an Arkansas prison at age 75, his involvement suspected but unproven until long after. Morgan remains missing, Her case active, with age-progressed images showing a woman in her 30s, perhaps alive somewhere, or forever lost to the night. Colleen's foundation has helped recover over 100 children, a light born from darkness. Yet unease lingers. Did Lynx act alone, or were there accomplices? The rain whispers possibilities, and as Morgan's fireflies fade into memory, the desert waves rise, carrying us to another vanishing. A quarter clattered to the pavement in Mesa, Arizona, marking the spot where 11-year-old Mikel Biggs disappeared into thin air on January 2nd, 1999. It was a crisp winter evening in the suburban neighborhood near Toltec and El Moro Avenues, where Mikel and her 9-year-old sister Kimber rode bikes in lazy circles, drawn by the distant jingle of an ice cream truck. Mikel, with her shoulder-length brown hair, hazel eyes, and a small scar on her right forearm, was the elder sibling, full of energy and mischief. She wore a blue bell-bottom jeans, a red shirt with horizontal stripes, and white roller skates strapped over her shoes. Their home was a safe haven, the street alive with kids playing under streetlights. But as Kimber grew cold and went inside for a sweater gone for just 90 seconds, something shifted. Mikel waited alone, quarters in hand for treats, her sister's pink BMX bike propped beneath her. In that brief window, a predator struck, pulling her from the ordinary into a void of terror. What obsession drove the abductor? A fleeting opportunity or a watched target? The moment was the tipping point, innocence erased in the blink of an eye. The signature of Mikel's abduction was its lightning speed and the poignant remnants left behind. Her bike lay wheels spinning on the sidewalk, quarters scattered like fallen stars too, for ice cream, now clues to horror. No scream echoed, no witnesses stirred. The neighborhood slumbered unaware, but the most cinematic detail emerged years later. A dollar bill found in 2009 in Neenah, Wisconsin, scrawled with my name is Mikel Biggs, kidnapped from Mesa A's I'm Alive. The handwriting didn't match, the ink too fresh, but it reignited hope and dread, a ghostly message from beyond, taunting investigators with possibilities of survival or cruel hope. The abductor evaded detection by striking in that razor-thin margin of time, exploiting the quiet of a post-holiday evening. Mesa was a growing city, its streets not yet wired with cameras, neighbors trusting enough to let kids roam. Initial searches combed sewers, canals, and deserts, helicopters buzzing overhead, but the trail was non-existent. Suspicion fell on family father Darian, lied about his whereabouts, out with a friend amid marital strains, but he was cleared. A neighbor, D. Lee Block, emerged as a person of interest, a convicted sex offender who lived blocks away, arrested months later for raping another woman. He matched a vague description: tall, muscular, with tattoos, and his home overlooked the Biggs, but no evidence linked him directly. Searches of his property found nothing. Tips poured in over 10,000, but the abductor blended into anonymity, perhaps a transient or local monster hiding behind normalcy. The lack of Amber Alert, still nascent, meant no swift broadcast, allowing escape into Arizona's vast landscapes. The vanishing remains complete, no capture, no body. In 2024, 25 years on, Mesa police reaffirmed Bullock as the prime suspect, serving life for other crimes, but without proof in Mikel's case. Detectives dug anew, interviewing Blalock's ex-wife and scouring old leads, but he denied involvement from prison. A $2018 bill clue fizzled as a probable prank. Mikel slipped beyond reach, her fate a puzzle piece lost to time. perhaps buried in the sun or in desert or alive in secrecy. Blalock lingers in prison, his 187-year sentence for unrelated assaults, ensuring he'll die behind bars. But Mikhail's justice eludes. She's still missing. Age progressed to a woman in her 30s, her family clinging to a documentary project for awareness. Relief mixes with unease. Was it Blalock or another shadow? The desert wind howls, dissolving Mikhail's bike into dust, and drifts us to a humid Illinois morning where another girl vanishes. The rain hums softly, a veil over the world, as we drift from Arizona's deserts to the humid haze of Moline, Illinois, where a girl's laughter was silenced forever. On August 28, 1996, 11-year-old Trudy Appleby stepped out of her home, her blonde hair catching the morning light, unaware that a predator waited in the fog. Trudy was a vibrant girl, tall for her age, with blue-green eyes and a sprinkle of freckles across her nose. That summer morning, she left her house on 24th Street in Moline to meet a friend, her denim shorts and white t-shirt blending into the ordinary rhythm of a small-town day. Her father, Dennis, was at work, her mother out running errands. Trudy was alone, the neighborhood quiet under a blanket of late summer mist. She was last seen climbing into a black pickup truck, driven by a man described as white, in his 20s, with curly dark hair and a baseball cap. Was it a friend's relative, a familiar face, or a stranger who'd watched her before? Something lured her into that truck, a moment where trust turned. The line between safety and horror blurred, and Trudy's descent into darkness began, driven by a man whose obsession, whether sudden or long-planned, swallowed her whole. The signature of Trudy's abduction was the chilling normalcy of it, a girl vanishing without a scream, leaving only whispers of a black truck fading into the fog. But what haunts most is the single sighting that lingered in memory. A neighbor saw Trudy in the passenger seat, her face calm, perhaps unaware of the danger, as the truck pulled away. It was a fleeting glimpse, a snapshot of innocence moments before it was erased, etched into Moline's collective nightmare. The truck, possibly a Chevy S10 with a red pinstripe, was ordinary, untraceable in a town full of pickups, making the abduction feel like a ghost had slipped through the morning. The abductor evaded capture by exploiting the trust of a tight-knit community. Moline in 1996 was a place where kids roamed freely, where a girl getting into a truck might seem like a ride with a friend's uncle. The fog that day was a perfect cloak, obscuring details and delaying alarms. No Amber Alert existed. Illinois wouldn't adopt it until 2003, leaving police to rely on slow-spreading word of mouth. Initial searches scoured the Mississippi River banks and wooded areas, but the truck and its driver melted into the Midwest sprawl. Suspicion fell on a local man, William Ed Smith, a friend of Trudy's family with a history of inappropriate behavior toward young girls. He drove a black truck, lived nearby, and had been seen with Trudy before, but no hard evidence fighters, DNA, or witnesses pinned him. Tips, over 4,000 in the first year, led nowhere, and the abductor slipped through, perhaps hiding behind a familiar face or fleeing to another state. No capture came. In 2017, police named Smith, then in his 50s, as a person of interest, but he died in 2014, taking any secrets to his grave. Searches of his properties found nothing. No trace of Trudy or her butterfly earrings. The black truck remained a phantom, its driver a shadow who exploited Moline's blind spots, a small town's belief that evil came from outside, not within. The case grew cold, the fog of that morning a metaphor for the mystery that endured. Trudy Appleby remains missing, her fate a void where hope and despair collide. Age-progressed images show a woman now, perhaps 40, but they're only guesses, fragile threads in a tapestry of loss. Was Smith the monster, or did another predator slip away? The rain falls steadily, washing away the image of that black truck, and we drift to another night, where a child's trust was betrayed under Oklahoma star. In the stillness of a May evening in 1997, 8-year-old Kirsten Hatfield vanished from her bedroom in Midwest City, Oklahoma, leaving only a broken window and a mother's scream. Kirsten was a slight girl with brown hair and eyes, last seen in her Tweety Bird nightgown, asleep in the home she shared with her mother, Shannon, and stepfather. Around midnight on May 14th, Shannon checked on Kirsten and her sister, finding them safe. But by 6 a.m., Kirsten was gone. The window screen slashed. A pair of men's underwear left on the floor, a chilling clue to a predator's presence. What drove this man to creep into a child's room to shatter the safety of sleep? Was it a long-simmering obsession, watching Kirsten from afar, or a spontaneous act of darkness? The moment he crossed that window frame, he plunged into a realm of unspeakable horror, taking Kirsten with him. The signature of this crime was the violation of sanctuary, the bedroom, a place of safety turned into a stage for terror. The men's underwear, size small, with a blue waistband, was a grotesque calling card, suggesting a sexual motive that chilled investigators. But it was the blood on the windowsill, later matched to Kirsten through DNA, that painted a grim picture, a struggle, a child's fear sealed in those crimson traces. The image of that broken window, curtains fluttering in the Oklahoma breeze, became a haunting emblem of innocence stolen in the night. The abductor hid in plain sight, exploiting the quiet of a working-class neighborhood. Midwest City was no stranger to petty crime, but a child's abduction was unthinkable. The intruder left minimal evidence, only the underwear and blood, but blood suggesting a careful predator. Early suspicion fell on neighbors, including Anthony Palma, a 56-year-old across the street with a minor criminal record. He was questioned in 1997, but claimed no knowledge, and with no witnesses or physical links, police moved on. The absence of Amber Alert meant no immediate broadcast, no lockdown of roads. Searches of fields, ponds, and Tinker Air Force Base nearby turned up nothing. Palma lived on unnoticed as tips over 2,000 faded and the case grew cold. The unmasking came 18 years later, in 2015, when Midwest City Police reopened the case. Advanced DNA testing, unavailable in 1997, re-examined the underwear and blood, linking the underwear to Palma through a familial match. His DNA, collected after his 2015 arrest for unrelated charges, confirmed he'd been in Kirsten's room. Palma, now elderly, had lived across from the Hatfields all those years, mowing his lawn, waving to neighbors, a monster cloaked in normalcy. In 2017, he was convicted of Kirsten's murder, though her body was never found, likely disposed of in a nearby landfill, searched too late. Palma died in prison in 2018, at 70, his conviction a bitter justice. Kirsten remains missing, presumed dead, her Tweety Bird nightgown a ghostly image in her mother's memory. The underwear, the blood, the broken window, they linger, proof of a predator's reach into the heart of a home. Relief at Palma's conviction mixes with unease. Where is Kirsten's body, her final resting place? The rain softens, carrying us from Oklahoma's quiet streets to a Virginia apartment complex where another child vanished. On a December evening in 1989, 5-year-old Melissa Brannon disappeared from a Christmas party in Lorton, Virginia, leaving only a mother's desperate search and a man's chilling calm. Melissa, with her blonde curls and shy smile, was at the Woodside Apartments clubhouse, clutching a candy cane from the party. Her mother, Tammy, stepped away briefly, and when she returned, Melissa was gone. Caleb Hughes, a 24-year-old groundskeeper, was seen lingering near her, his presence unremarkable, until it wasn't. What drove Hughes to target a child amidst festive lights? A hidden hunger or a moment's impulse? His descent into darkness began as he slipped Melissa from the crowd, unnoticed. The signature was the absence. Melissa vanished without a trace. No scream, no struggle, only her pink coat left in the clubhouse. But the haunting detail emerged later. Fibers from Hughes' car, a blue Nissan, matched those on Melissa's clothes, and a single bunny rabbit sticker from her outfit was found in his vehicle. A child's treasure turned evidence of horror. The image of that sticker, alone in a killer's car, burns like a wound. Hughes evaded suspicion by being part of the Scenery A maintenance worker, familiar, trusted. He left the party calmly, even speaking to Tammy as she searched. Police found fibers and the sticker in his car days later, and witnesses recalled him washing his clothes that night, erasing traces. No Amber Alert existed. The search lagged. Hughes was convicted of abduction in 1991, sentenced to 50 years, but Melissa's body was never found, likely hidden in Virginia's woods. Hughes remains in prison, eligible for parole in 2031. Melissa is still missing, her fate a shadow over Lorton. The bunny sticker lingers, a fragile clue to a lost child. The rain whispers against the window, a soft curtain, drawing us from Virginia's shadowed apartments to a sunlit street in South Lake Tahoe, California, where a girl's life was stolen in an instant. On June 10, 1991, 11-year-old J.C. Dugard stepped out toward her school bus stop, unaware that two predators watched from a gray sedan, their twisted desires about to shatter her world. Fight. J.C. was a shy girl with long blonde hair and blue-green eyes, dressed that morning in a pink windbreaker and a silver butterfly ring that caught the morning light. She walked alone down Washoe Boulevard, her backpack slung over one shoulder, the quiet of the Sierra Nevada foothills wrapping around her. Her stepfather, Carl Probin, watched from their driveway, a routine moment in a safe neighborhood. But then a gray Mercury Cougar slowed, driven by Philip Garrido, a 40-year-old ex-convict with a history of sexual violence, his wife Nancy beside him. Philip, fueled by a decades-long obsession with young girls, saw J.C. and acted. He leaned out, stunned her with a taser, and Nancy yanked her into the car. Carl saw the abduction, his shouts useless as the sedan sped off. What drove Philip to this brazen act? A compulsion rooted in his 1970s crimes, kidnapping, and rape for which he'd served only 11 years, or a darker hunger reignited. That morning, the Garridos crossed into a realm of unspeakable cruelty, dragging J.C. with them. The signature of J.C.'s abduction was its shocking daylight execution. But what sears the memory is the life she was forced to endure. For 18 years, the Garridos held her in their Antioch backyard, a hidden compound of tents and sheds behind their Walnut Avenue home. There, J.C. was renamed Alyssa, subjected to repeated assaults, and forced to bear two daughters born when she was 14 and 17, fathered by Philip. The backyard prison, concealed by fences and tarps, was a world apart, where J.C.'s butterfly ring became a relic of her lost childhood, a silent scream in a life rewritten by horror. The image of that hidden compound, a secret hell in a suburban neighborhood, lingers like a nightmare too vivid to shake. The Garridos evaded detection by crafting a facade of normalcy. Philip, a self-styled preacher with a printing business, was charismatic, blending into Antioch's working-class community. Nancy, quiet and complicit, worked as a nursing aide, her devotion to Philip blinding her to morality. They kept J.C. hidden in plain sight, the backyard compound, unnoticed by neighbors or parole officers, despite Philip's status as a registered sex offender. He'd been paroled in 1988 after a 1977 kidnapping conviction, monitored loosely with monthly check-ins, but no one searched his property. Why? Tips came. Neighbors reported odd behavior, like Philip's rants or children's voices from the yard, but police dismissed them, missing chances to uncover the truth. The absence of an Amber Alert in 1991 meant no immediate broadcast, allowing the Garridos to vanish into California's sprawl after the abduction. For 18 years, they lived openly, even taking J.C. and her daughters to public events, her identity erased under Philip's control. J.C.'s unmasking came by chance, a crack in the Garridos' carefully built lot. On August 24, 2009, Philip visited UC Berkeley with J.C.'s daughters, seeking to hold a religious event. Campus police, suspicious of his erratic behavior and the girls' demeanor, ran a background check, uncovering his sex offender status. When questioned, Philip brought J.C., still Alyssa, to a parole meeting in Concord. There, on August 26, she revealed her true name, breaking 18 years of silence. The Garridos were arrested, their compound exposed, and J.C. was reunited with her family, her daughters 11 and 15 learning their mother's real identity. The rescue was a miracle, but the years lost were a wound that would never fully heal. Philip Garrido was sentenced to 431 years in 2011 for kidnapping, rape, and false imprisonment. Nancy received 36 years. Both remain in California prisons, their fates sealed, but J.C.'s survival is a testament to resilience. Now in her 40s, she wrote a memoir, A Stolen Life, reclaiming her voice, but the butterfly ring and the backyard prison haunt her story. Relief at her return mixes with unease. How many others remain hidden in plain sight? The rain falls gently, carrying us from California's foothills to a Minnesota road where another child's life was stolen. On an October evening in 1989, 11-year-old Jacob Wetterling rode his bike with friends in St. Joseph, Minnesota, unaware that a masked man waited in the shadows. Jacob, with his brown hair and infectious smile, was a typical kid out for a ride to a convenience store with his brother Trevor and friend Eric. It was October 22nd, a cool night, the trio pedaling under a starlit sky. Danny Heinrich, a 26-year-old drifter with a history of sexual assaults on boys, had been stalking the area, his obsession with young victims growing since his teens. One, spotting the boys, he donned a mask, brandished a gun, and stepped onto the road, ordering them to lie down. He took Jacob, sending the others away, and vanished into the night. What drove Heinrich? A compulsion honed over years of escalating attacks, or a predator seizing opportunity. That moment on the rural road marked his plunge into a darkness that would haunt Minnesota for decades. The signature of Jacob's abduction was the terror of the ordinary A bike ride turned nightmare. But what lingers is the mask. Heinrich's black ski mask, described by Trevor and Aaron, became a symbol of faceless evil, a specter that hid his identity and fueled a 27-year mystery. The boys' bikes, left scattered on the road, and Jacob's red hockey jacket, never found, painted a scene of sudden loss, a moment frozen in time as a community's safety shattered. Heinrich evaded capture by exploiting the rural isolation of Stearns County. St. Joseph was a small town, trusting with no cameras or immediate alert. The Amber Alert system didn't exist, and the initial search neighbors, police, even the National Guard found only footprints and tire tracks that led nowhere. Heinrich, a local oddity with a string of burglaries and assaults, was questioned early, but released for lack of evidence. He lived openly, moving between Painesville and Annandale, even as tips over 30,000 poured in. His prior attacks on boys in nearby towns, including a 1989 assault on Jarrettshire, went unlinked until DNA technology advanced. Heinrich's low profile, a loner working odd jobs, let him slip through, a ghost in a community desperate for answers. The unmasking came in 2016, after decades of anguish. In 2015, DNA from Jared's assault matched Heinrich, prompting a search of his home. Child pornography and news clippings about Jacob were found, but no direct evidence. Facing charges, Heinrich confessed in a plea deal, admitting he abducted, assaulted, and killed Jacob, shooting him in panic after the assault. He led police to a field near Painesville, where Jacob's remains, his red jacket among them, were unearthed. 27 years after that fateful night, the confession closed the case, but the loss was a scar on Minnesota's heart. Heinrich was sentenced to 20 years for child pornography, the maximum under his plea, and remains in federal prison, eligible for release in 2033. Jacob's legacy lives in the Jacob Wetterling Resource Center, founded by his mother, Patty, which fights child exploitation. The mask, the bikes, the rural road they lingered, a reminder of evil's reach. Relief at justice mixes with unease. Heinrich walked free for 27 years, perhaps harming others. The rain hums its endless lullaby, pulling us from Minnesota's starlit roads to a warm June evening in Overland, Missouri, where the laughter of two sisters was silenced forever. On June 7, 1977, 5-year-old Brandy Summers and 2-year-old Tiffany Wise vanished from Weinman Park, stolen by a shadow that lingered in the dusk. Brandy, with her blonde curls and bright green eyes, was a whirlwind of energy, chasing fireflies in her red sundress. Tiffany, barely 2, toddled behind, her brown eyes wide, clutching a small stuffed bear in her tiny hand. The sisters were inseparable, playing under the watchful eye of their mother, Linda, at a playground in their working-class St. Louis suburb. It was a typical summer evening, the park alive with children's shouts and the hum of cicadas. But as Linda turned to speak with another parent, a man approached the girl's wife, in his 30s, with dark hair and a disarming smile. He offered candy, perhaps a promise of a puppy, and the sisters, trusting and curious, followed. In a heartbeat, they were gone. The park swing still swaying, their mother's call unanswered. What drove this man to steal 2 children at once? Was it a twisted hunger, a need to possess innocence, or a calculated act planned in the shadow? That fleeting moment marked his descent into a darkness that would haunt Overland for decades. The signature of this crime was its devastating stroke. 2 sisters, so young, taken together, leaving a void that doubled the grief. But what sears the memory is the stuffed bear, found discarded near the park's edge, its fur matted with dirt, a silent witness to Tiffany's tiny grip. The image of that bear, alone in the grass, with Brandy's sandal nearby, became a haunting emblem of loss, a scene so vivid it replayed in nightmares across Missouri. The abductor's audacity striking in a crowded park at dusk made the act feel like a theft from the heart of safety, a violation that turned a summer evening into a ghost story. He evaded capture by blending into the chaos of a busy park. Overland in 1977 was a trusting community where strangers offering treats weren't immediately suspect. The man's description, medium build, dark hair, possibly driving a blue van, was vague, matching countless men in St. Louis County. No Amber Alert existed. The system was decades away. Police canvassed the area, searched nearby woods and the Merrimack River, but found no trace beyond the Bear and Sandal. Tips flooded in over 3,000 in the first months, but led to dead end. Suspicion fell on a local drifter, John Doe in Records, known for loitering near playgrounds. But he had an alibi, and no evidence linked him. The abductor slipped through, perhaps a transient passing through or a neighbor hiding behind a normal life, exploiting the era's lack of surveillance and instant communication. No capture came. The case grew cold, the blue van a phantom in Missouri's sprawling suburbs. In the 1980s, a convicted child predator, later identified as Charles Ray Hatcher, emerged as a possible suspect. Hatcher, active in the Midwest during the 1970s, had a history of abducting and killing children, but he committed suicide in prison in 1984 before police could question him about Brandy and Tiffany. Searches of his known haunts, abandoned buildings, rural fields yielded nothing, and the sisters' fate remained a mystery. The park, once a place of joy, became a shrine to loss. Its swings avoided by new generations. Brandy and Tiffany remain missing, their faces frozen in 1977. Age-progressed images showing women now in their 50s and late 40s, but only in dreams. The man who took them is likely dead or hidden, his secret buried in Missouri's clay. The stuffed bear, preserved in evidence, whispers of Tiffany's last moments, leaving us suspended between hope and despair. Did they suffer, or was there mercy in their end? The rain falls heavier, blurring the park's edges, and carries us to a Montana forest where another child vanished. In the dense woods of Helena, Montana, on June 25, 1983, 4-year-old Nylene Marshall disappeared during a family picnic, her small figure swallowed by the trees. Nylene, with her brown curls and hazel eyes, was a shy girl, dressed in a yellow t-shirt and shorts, playing near a creek at the Elkhorn Park campground. Her family, part of a ham radio club outing, was scattered nearby, setting up tents and grilling. Nylene wandered a few steps from her mother, chasing a butterfly, when a man in a jogging suit, described as tall, with dark hair, spoke to her softly. She followed, perhaps lured by a kind word, and vanished into the pines. What drove this man to strike in a crowded forest? A fleeting impulse, or a predator stalking the campground? His descent into darkness was swift, stealing Nylene from a moment of joy. The signature was the wilderness itself, a vast accomplice to the crime. Nylene's tiny sneakers, found a mile away near a creek, were the only trace, their laces still tied, suggesting she was carried. The image of those sneakers, alone in the underbrush, with no scream or struggle heard, haunts like a ghost story told around a campfire. The forest, dense with Douglas firs, swallowed her whole, making her disappearance feel like the land itself conspired to hide the truth. He evaded capture by exploiting the Elkhorn's isolation. The campground, 30 miles from Helena, had no cell service or cameras in 1983, and the picnics chaosed dozens of families. Kids running wild provided cover. The man's jogging suit suggested he blended as a hiker or local, unnoticed among the crowd. No Amber Alert existed. The search relied on volunteers and bloodhounds, combing 20 square miles of rugged terrain. A suspect, a drifter named John, was questioned after a witness saw him near the creek, but he vanished before police could act. Tips over 2,500 pointed to sightings in California and Idaho, but none panned out. In 1985, a letter arrived from Wisconsin claiming Nylene was alive, raised by a cult, but it was deemed a hoax. The abductor slipped into the vast American West, perhaps never to be seen. No capture came. In 1990, a call to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children claimed Nylene was in Vancouver, but the lead dissolved. The forest kept its secrets, and Nylene's case grew cold. Her mother, Nancy, died in 2012, never knowing her daughter's fate. Nylene remains missing. Her age-progressed image, a woman in her 40s, perhaps alive in hiding or lost to the pines. Perhaps alive in hiding or lost to the pines. The sneakers, the jogging suit, the silent forest, they linger. A mystery unsolved. Relief is absent. Unease reigns. The rain softens, drifting us to a Florida morning where a girl met a monster. On February 9, 1978, 12-year-old Kimberly Leach stepped out of her Lake City, Florida school, unaware that Ted Bundy, America's most notorious predator, waited nearby. Kimberly, with her dark hair and shy smile, was a cheerleader, walking to her homeroom at Lakeshore Junior High. Bundy, 31, was on the run, his charm masking a killing spree across 6 states. After escaping a Colorado jail, he fled to Florida, his compulsion to kill undimmed. Spotting Kimberly in the rain-soaked courtyard, he approached, likely posing as an authority figure, and lured her to his stolen white van. What drove Bundy? A ravenous need for control, honed over years of murders that saw Kimberly as just another victim. His descent, long begun, culminated in her death. The signature was Bundy's chilling efficiency. Kimberly's body, found 8 weeks later in a hog shed 35 miles away, bore the marks of his savagery, assaulted, strangled, discarded like refuse. The shed, a grim stage of decay, with Kimberly's cheerleader uniform crumpled nearby, became an indelible image, a testament to Bundy's monstrous detachment. Her death was his final act before capture, a brutal coda to a reign of terror. Bundy evaded capture for weeks by exploiting his chameleon-like charm. In Lake City, he was just another drifter, renting a room under an alias, Chris Hagen. No Amber Alert existed. Kimberly's absence wasn't noticed until hours later, giving Bundy time to flee. Police, unaware of his presence, focused on local suspects until his arrest 3 days later for driving a stolen car. Evidence fibers, blood in his van linked him to Kimberly, but his charisma delayed suspicion. Even as tips poured in, his unmasking came swiftly. On February 15, 1978, Pensacola police stopped Bundy, recognizing him from wanted posters. He confessed to Kimberly's murder and dozens more, detailing his crimes with cold precision. The white van, the hog shed, the cheerleader uniform, they sealed his fate. Convicted in 1979, he was sentenced to death. The rain falls in a steady whisper, drawing us from Florida's blood-stained hog shed to another sunlit morning in the same state, where a boy's bright smile was extinguished by a predator's shadow. On July 27, 1981, 6-year-old Adam Walsh vanished from a Sears store in Hollywood, Florida, stepping into a mystery that would reshape a nation's approach to missing children. Adam was a small boy with tousled brown hair and a gap-toothed grin, dressed that day in a red baseball cap, striped shirt, and green shorts. He was at the Hollywood Mall with his mother, Reve, browsing the toy aisle while she shopped nearby. Adam, captivated by an Atari display where older boys played, lingered as Reve stepped away for a moment, just a few aisles, a few minutes. But in that brief gap, a figure approached, perhaps coaxing Adam with a promise or a lie. When Reve returned, her son was gone, the Atari screen flickering, the store's hum unbroken. What drove this abductor to snatch a child from a bustling mall? Was it a sudden impulse, a twisted hunger sparked by Adam's trusting eyes, or a calculated hunt in a crowd? The moment marked a descent into darkness, a predator crossing a line that would leave a family shattered and a nation forever changed. The signature of Adam's disappearance was its brutal aftermath, a horror that unfolded 2 weeks later. On August 10, 1981, fishermen found Adam's severed head in a canal 120 miles away in Vero Beach. His body never recovered. The image of that discovery, his red baseball cap missing, his identity confirmed by dental records, became a visceral wound, a chilling emblem of a crime so heinous it defied comprehension. The canal, its murky waters hiding the rest of Adam's fate, transformed a routine shopping trip into a nightmare etched into America's psyche, a reminder that evil could strike anywhere, even in a crowded store. The abductor evaded capture by exploiting the chaos of the mall and the era's investigative limits. Hollywood, Florida, in 1981 was a growing suburb. It Sears a hub of activity where a child's absence might go unnoticed for precious minutes. The abductor, described vaguely by witnesses as a white man, possibly in his 30s with dark hair, melted into the crowd. No Amber Alert existed. Adam's case would later inspire its creation, and the initial response was slow. Mall security ejected a group of teens, including Adam, mistaking him for a troublemaker, possibly pushing him toward the predator outside. Police searched parking lots and canals, following 2,000 tips, but leads fizzled. A drifter, Otis Toole, emerged early as a suspect, a convicted killer with a history of vagrancy and confessions to countless murders. He admitted to Adam's killing in 1983, describing luring him with candy and committing unspeakable acts. But his story shifted, and evidence was thin. No blood, no fibers, only his word. Toole's partner, Henry Lee Lucas, also confessed, muddying the truth. The case grew cold, the killer slipping through a system unprepared for such horror. No definitive capture came, though Toole remained the prime suspect, a wiry, illiterate man with a penchant for arson and murder. He drifted across the South, his 1967 Ford linked to no concrete evidence in Adam's case. Police questioned him repeatedly, but his confessions, often recanted, lacked corroboration. In 1983, he led detectives to a canal, claiming he'd disposed of Adam's body, but searches found nothing. Toole's mental instability and Lucas's influence cast doubt, and Hollywood police, without DNA or witnesses, couldn't charge him. He died in prison in 1996 at 49, convicted of other murders, his role in Adam's death unproven but heavily suspected. In 2008, after 27 years, police officially closed the case, naming Toole as the killer based on his confessions and circumstantial links, like his presence in Florida that summer. But no body, no conviction, only a partial truth emerged, leaving the unmasking incomplete. Toole's death in a Florida prison from cirrhosis ended any chance of a final confession. Adam's head, found in that Vero Beach canal, was the only piece returned to his family. His red cap and small sneakers lost to the water's depth. Reve and John Walsh channeled their grief into advocacy, founding the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and pushing for the Amber Alert, which has saved over 1,000 children since 1996. Yet the case's resolution feels hollow. Tools confessions, riddled with inconsistencies, leave whispers of doubt. Was he truly alone? Or did Lucas or another shadow play a role? The canal's silence holds no answers, and the image of Adam's smile, frozen in a 1981 photo, haunts like a ghost. Relief at naming a killer mixes with unease, the full truth drowned with Adam's body, somewhere in Florida's murky waters. The rain falls heavier now, blurring the mall's neon lights, and carries us to another loss, another child stolen from the ordinary. On October 4, 2011, 8-month-old Lisa Irwin vanished from her home, a mystery that would unravel a family and haunt a city forever. Lisa was a cherubic infant with wide blue eyes and wisps of blonde hair, tucked into her crib in a modest ranch-style house on North Lister Avenue. Her parents, Deborah Bradley and Jeremy Irwin, were ordinary people, an electrician and a stay-at-home mom raising Lisa and her two older brothers in a working-class neighborhood. That night, Jeremy worked a late shift at a local Starbucks, while Deborah stayed home, the house filled with the soft sounds of sleeping children. Around 11 p.m., Deborah, admittedly intoxicated after drinking with a neighbor, checked on Lisa, or so she claimed, and went to bed. Jeremy returned at 4 a.m., his heart stopping as he found the front door ajar, lights blazing, and a window in the computer room pushed open. He checked on his sons, asleep in their beds, then entered Lisa's room. Her crib was empty, her purple shorts and kitten-themed shirt gone with her. Panic seized him as he woke Deborah, their screams shattering the night as they called 911. What drove someone to slip into this home, to steal a sleeping baby? Was it a stranger's twisted compulsion, or a darker truth hidden within the family's walls? That moment marked a descent into a nightmare where innocence vanished and suspicion took root. The signature of Lisa's disappearance was its eerie silence, a baby taken without a sound. But what lingers most is the open front door, a portal to the unknown, standing wide as if inviting the world to witness the loss. The house, bathed in unnatural light, with 3 cell phones missing from the kitchen counter, painted a scene of violation so subtle it defied reason. The image of that crib, its blankets undisturbed yet empty, became a haunting tableau, a snapshot of a family's world torn apart. The missing phones, one broken and useless, suggested a thief's haste or a calculated move to sever communication, a detail that burned into the minds of those who searched for Lisa. The abductor, or the truth evaded capture, by exploiting the chaos of the moment and the era's investigative gaps. Independence in 2011 was a close-knit community where neighbors trusted neighbors and a break-in seemed unthinkable. The open door and window suggested an intruder, but no fingerprints, no DNA, no clear signs of forced entry emerged. Over 100 officers scoured the woods behind the house, helicopters buzzing overhead, but found nothing. 2 witnesses reported seeing a man with a baby in the early hours, one near McCoy Park, another on Purcell's Road, but the descriptions, a white man, 30-50, in a t-shirt, were vague, and one witness couldn't confirm the suspect's photo. The Amber Alert, issued hours later, spread Lisa's image 30 inches tall, 28 pounds, with 2 bottom teeth, but the trail was already cold. The police followed leads, including a 50-second call from one of the stolen phones to a woman named Megan Wright, linked to a local handyman, John Jersey Tanko, but he was clear, his alibi holding. The community rallied, holding vigils, but the abductor, if there was one slipped through, perhaps a ghost in the night or a truth buried closer to home. The rain's soft patter carries us deeper into the mystery, but the truth remains elusive. Deborah and Jeremy were cooperative at first, their desperation palpable as they pleaded for Lisa's return. Yet cracks appeared. Deborah's story shifted. She initially said she checked Lisa at 10:40 p.m., but in a live interview 9 days later, she admitted it was 6:40 p.m. Her mind clouded by wine and anxiety medication. She confessed to drinking heavily, possibly blacking out, a revelation that turned public sympathy to suspicion. Cadaver dogs signaled a scent of death near Deborah's bed, a chilling hint quickly dismissed when no body was found. The police accused her of failing a polygraph, though she claimed they withheld results. Jeremy offered to take one, but was told it wasn't needed. Their cooperation waned by late October, frustration mounting as police focused on Deborah, her inconsistent timeline and intoxication fueling theories of guilt. Yet no evidence, only holes in her story-supported charges. The case grew colder, the abductor or the answer slipping further away. In 2012, Jeremy revealed on the Today Show fraudulent charges on their debit card, linked to a website for changing names, confirmed real by the show and their attorney. Was it a clue to Lisa's fate, a new identity crafted for her? The lead fizzled, the website a dead end. The family's private investigator, funded by a $100,000 reward, chased sightings like a 2013 report of a girl resembling Lisa in a Greek Romani camp. Proven false, but nothing materialized. Proven false? The abductor, if one existed, exploited the blind spots of a pre-digital era, where a baby could vanish without a trace, and a family's grief could be twisted into suspicion. Lisa Irwin remains missing, her fate a shadow over Independent. The reward, still $100,000, waits for answers that never come. Age-progressed images show a girl of 14, but she's frozen as an 8-month-old in memory, her blue eyes a question mark. Was she taken by a stranger, as Deborah insists, believing in a premeditated trafficking plot? Or does the truth lie closer, in the inconsistencies of a mother's story? The open door, the empty crib, the missing phones, they linger like ghosts, offering no closure. Relief is a stranger. Unease is all that remains. The rain falls, blurring the house on North Lister Avenue, and carries us to another tale, where darkness waits in the quiet. In a quiet Alabama town, a weekend of joy turned into a nightmare that would haunt Flynn for 2 decades. Monica Rollins, a 23-year-old mother, 8.5 months pregnant, and her 6-year-old son Dalton were found stabbed to death in their home on Sugar Hill Drive, a tragedy that shattered the small community. For 21 years, their killer roamed free, the case growing colder with each passing season, until a confession in June 2023 tore open old wounds and brought a chilling truth to light. Monica's descent into darkness began long before the blade found her. In 2001, her marriage to Jeremy Rollins, her high school sweetheart, unraveled. They had 2 sons, Dalton and 2-year-old Aaron, but the birth of their youngest strained their bond. Jeremy moved out, their love replaced by a fragile co-parenting arrangement with weekend visits for the boys. Monica, now a single mother, carried on, her 3rd child due in weeks. On September 13, 2002, she and her sons visited her father, who gifted Dalton a foal named Mojave. The evening was filled with laughter, the promise of a new pet lifting their spirits. They planned to return that weekend, unaware that time was running out. Somewhere in those fleeting days, a shadow entered their lives. Lewis Ladden Spivey, an 18-year-old acquaintance with a darkness festering within. The murders were brutal, marked by a signature so gruesome it seared itself into the minds of investigators. Monica, heavy with child, was stabbed repeatedly, her unborn son lost in the violence that tore through her body. The attack was so ferocious it triggered early labor, leaving her third child partially delivered in death's cruel embrace. Dalton, just 6, suffered a similar fate. His small frame, no match for the blade that ended his life. The scene was a tableau of horror. Blood-soaked floors, a mother and son taken in their sanctuary. Yet, in a haunting twist, 2-year-old Aaron survived, found cowering in a closet, untouched by the killer's hand. This sparing of the youngest child became the case's most chilling detail, a flicker of restraint in an otherwise merciless act, leaving investigators to wonder why he was left alive. Spivey's ability to evade justice for 21 years was a masterclass in slipping through cracks. In 2002, Flynn lacked the surveillance cameras and forensic advancements of today. DNA and fingerprints were collected, but the Alabama Department of Forensics faced a crippling backlog, delaying results for months. Spivey, a local with a troubled past, was questioned early on but dismissed as a dead end. He blended back into the world, his connection to Monica described vaguely as a relationship never fully explored. By 2010, he was in a Florida prison, serving 15 years for robbery and aggravated assault, crimes unrelated to the murders. There he sat in silence, his secret buried, while Heflin's investigators chased leads that led nowhere. The case grew cold, a wound that refused to heal for Monica's family, who lived with the agony of unanswered questions. The break came unexpectedly, like a storm after a long drought. On June 30th, 2023, days after his early release from a Florida prison, Spivey confessed. Now 39, with a swastika tattooed on his neck, he laid out the timeline of that September weekend with chilling clarity, taking sole responsibility for the murders. What prompted his confession remains unclear. Guilt, a need to unburden, or perhaps a belief that time had erased his trail. Heflin Police Captain Scott Bonner, who had grown close to Monica's family over years of dogged investigation, described the moment as bittersweet. Grants from seasons of justice and advanced DNA analysis by state and Canadian labs had kept the case alive, but it was Spivey's own words that finally broke it open. Arrested on 2 counts of murder, he was transported to Cleburne County Jail, held without bond under Anaya's law, a statute denying bail to violent offenders. Spivey's final fate hangs in limbo, a shadow cast over a town still grappling with law. He awaits trial, his confession a heavy anchor pinning him to the crimes. Monica's surviving son, Aaron, now an adult, carries the weight of a childhood marked by terror, the memory of hiding in that closet, a scar that never fades. The community of Heflin, once fractured by grief, finds some solace in justice, yet the pain lingers. Monica and Dalton's graves, marked by a halted funeral in 2002 for last-minute DNA collection, stand as quiet reminders of lives stolen too soon. As rain falls softly over Sugar Hill Drive, the story of their murders dissolves into the night, leaving a whisper of unease. What drives a man to confess after 2 decades of silence, and what other secrets might he carry? As the echo of Monica and Dalton's story fades, another shadow stirs in the darkness, ready to pull us into its depths. A new tale begins, where innocence meets a different kind of evil, and the truth waits, patient and unrelenting, to be uncovered. On a frigid February morning in 2008, a man stepped into a Lane Bryant store in Tinley Park, Illinois, and unleashed a horror that would claim 5 lives and leave a community frozen in fear. The Brookside Marketplace, a quiet suburban strip mall, became a stage for one of Chicago's most haunting unsolved crimes, where a routine Saturday turned into a nightmare of robbery and execution-style murder. The killer vanished into the ether, leaving behind a trail of grief and a case that, 17 years later, remains a chilling enigma. The descent began innocently enough. Rhoda McFarland, the 42-year-old store manager, opened the Lane Bryant at 10 a.m., expecting a busy day with a clearance sale. 4 customers: Jennifer Bishop, 34, Carrie Hudek-Cuso, 33, Connie Woolfolk, 37, and Sarah Safransky, 22, browsed the racks, joined by a part-time employee. A man entered, his demeanor casual, chatting as if he were a delivery driver. The women, unsuspecting, engaged with him, perhaps smiling at his small talk. But the air shifted when he drew a Truan .40 caliber Glock handgun, his voice hardening as he announced a robbery. He herded the 6 women to the back room, binding their hands and feet with duct tape, forcing them face down. What pushed him from thief to executioner remains a mystery, perhaps a moment of panic, a perceived threat, or a darkness that needed no reason. In those 40 minutes, he crossed a line, transforming a petty crime into a massacre. The killer's signature was as methodical as it was monstrous. Each woman was shot in the back of the neck, an executioner's precision that spoke of cold intent. Rhoda McFarland, a former pastor and Air Force veteran, fought back in her final moments, slipping her bonds to dial 911. Her whispered plea: Lane Bryant, hurry, carried the weight of 6 lives. But the call cut off as the killer's voice broke through, agitated, shouting, "I'm losing it." The audio, later released, captures a muffled chaos, his words a chilling echo that haunts investigators. One woman was sexually assaulted, adding a layer of violation to the horror. The lone survivor, the part-time employee, escaped death by a twist of fate, shifting her head as the gun fired. The bullet grazed her neck. She lay still, playing dead, her heart pounding as the killer fled, leaving behind a scene of blood and silence. His evasion was maddeningly simple. Tinley Park, a sleepy suburb, lacked the surveillance web of modern cities. The Brookside Marketplace sat near Interstate 80, a sprawling highway stretching across the country, offering a quick exit. Police believe he slipped onto I-80, blending into the stream of traffic, his escape as untraceable as a ghost. Early sketches, based on the survivor's vivid memory, described a black man, mid-20s to mid-30s, with cornrows and a single braid adorned with 4 light green beads dangling over his right cheek. Released on February 11, 2008, the sketch sparked 24 leads, but none led to a name. The killer's anonymity was his shield, even as the FBI, Illinois State Police, and South Suburban Major Crimes Task Force joined the hunt. He remained a shadow. Over 7,500 tips poured in over the years, filling binders at the Tinley Park Police Department. Yet, the case stalled. By 2018, a 3D composite refined the suspect's image, but the trail stayed cold, leading some, like retired Chicago Police Commander Mark Busley, to speculate the killer might be dead or long gone from Chicago. The capture never came. The survivor's courage, and working with police to refine the suspect's image down to the green beads in his braid offered hope, but the leads fizzled. A $100,000 reward, half funded by Lane Bryant's parent company, grew to $103,000 by 2024, with community contributions, yet no one has claimed it. The 911 call, public on Tinley Park's website, remains a grim artifact. Rhoda's faint voice and the killer's outburst replayed in hopes someone recognizes him. Theories abound: a robbery gone awry, a personal grudge, or a random act by a transient who vanished on I-80. The survivor, her identity protected, carries the weight of that day, her survival a miracle tinged with trauma. The case, still active, is worked by 2 new detectives as of 2022, fueled by the village's commitment to justice. But the killer's absence gnaws at the families left behind. The final fate of the Lane Bryant killer is a void. He may walk among us, his braid long gone, his face aged beyond the sketch, or he may lie in an unmarked grave, his secrets buried with him. The 5 women Rhoda, Jennifer, Carrie, Connie, and Sarah left behind children, siblings, and dreams unfulfilled. Rhoda's brother, Maurice Hamilton, clings to faith, hoping for closure. Jennifer's sister, Michaela Talos, speaks of anger at the silence of those who might know the truth. The store, now a TJ Maxx, stands as a quiet scar on Tinley Park's landscape, the community's vigilance, unbroken but shaken. As the rain falls over the empty parking lot, the question lingers. Who was the man with the green beaded braid, and where does he hide? The answer slips away, a whisper lost in the wind, as another dark tale stirs in the shadows, ready to unfold. In the quiet haze of a Mississippi afternoon, a young man's life ended in a bathroom stained with doubt, leaving whispers of betrayal that echoed through the night like distant thunder. Christian Andreacchio was just 21, a vibrant soul with dreams as wide as the Mississippi River, where he worked as a towboat mate, earning good money and planning a future as a captain. But on February 26, 2014, the ordinary rhythm of his life shattered when he returned early from his hitch to his Meridian apartment, drawn back by whispers of infidelity from his girlfriend, Whitley. Tension simmered. Christian had discovered missing money from his account, and arguments flared over Whitley's alleged cheating. His best friend, Dylan Swearingen, arrived amid the chaos, ostensibly to mediate, but the air grew thick with unspoken motives. As the day wore on, Christian's frustration mounted. He texted friends about his heartache, even hinting at despair. But those close to him knew him as resilient, not broken. Yet, in that confined space, something snapped. Whitley later claimed Christian grew erratic, waving his .45 caliber pistol, threatening self-harm. Dylan said he disarmed him briefly, but then, alone in the bathroom, a shot rang out. Was it a desperate act of a heartbroken youth, or had darker impulses from those nearest to him, obsessed with money, secrets, and escape-pushed events toward unspeakable violence? The line between suicide and murder blurred as jealousy and greed coiled like shadows, drawing them all over the edge into a web of deception. What haunts this tale most is the grotesque staging, a cinematic horror etched in blood and contradiction. Christian was found slumped over the bathtub, a single bullet wound to his right temple, the gun uncocked by his left thigh, odd for a right-handed man. Forensic experts hired by his family dissected the scene. The bullet trajectory defied logic, entering at an upward angle that suggested he couldn't have fired it himself while kneeling as claimed. Blood spatter was minimal, inconsistent with a close-range headshot, and his body showed signs of livor mortis on his back, implying he'd been moved hours after death, perhaps repositioned to mimic despair. Stranger still, his clothes appeared disturbed, as if changed post-mortem, pants unbuttoned, shirt askew, hinting at a frantic cover-up. No fingerprints marred the gun, wiped clean in haste, and both Whitley and Dillon tested positive for gunshot residue, dismissed casually as residue from prior target practice. This signature of staging, cold and calculated, painted a picture not of self-inflicted agony, but of hands that orchestrated death, turning a bathroom into a theater of lies, where the victim's final pose screamed foul play. They evaded scrutiny with chilling ease, exploiting the blind spots of a rushed investigation that lasted a mere 45 minutes. Police arrived at Dillon's frantic 911 call, finding Whitley hysterical, claiming she'd discovered the body after hearing the shot while outside smoking. Yet her story shifted like sand, first saying she was inside, then out. Timelines muddled about when Christian allegedly threatened suicide. Dillon, meanwhile, had been spotted at the bank earlier that day, attempting to withdraw cash using Christian's debit card and info, claiming permission but lacking the PIN, a bold move that reeked of premeditation. No thorough interviews with family or friends probed Christian's true state of mind. No deep dive into missing money or relationship strain. The pair hid in plain sight, their youth and tears shielding them from suspicion in a small town where authorities leaned on their words alone. Whitley's possession of Christian's phone, initially denied, raised flags but was brushed aside. For years, they continued life amid whispers, Whitley changing appearances to dodge social media glare, Dillon facing unrelated charges, while podcasts like Culpable and 48 Hours unearthed discrepancies the initial probe ignored. Blind faith in their accounts, coupled with alleged local corruption ties to influential families, allowed the evasion to stretch on, as evidence like unpresented police reports languished, letting shadows linger untouched. The unmasking came not in a dramatic chase, but through relentless pursuit by Christian's parents, Ray and Todd Andriacchio, who refused the suicide ruling. Hiring private investigators and forensic pathologists, they revealed the body had likely been staged, blood patterns inconsistent, and a hidden report from a Meridian detective urging a homicide probe. In 2017, arrest warrants for manslaughter targeted Whitley and Dillon, but a grand jury, deprived of key evidence like that report, declined to indict. The case simmered, fueled by media scrutiny. A $100,000 reward from Culpable drew tips, and in 2019, Meridian City Council petitioned the U.S. Department of Justice for review. Leaked audio, lawsuits over defamatory claims, and cryptic poems from Whitley hinting at inner turmoil kept the pressure on. Yet, they slipped beyond immediate reach, the grand jury's no bill leaving them free, as if dissolving into the humid Mississippi mist. Their involvement forever debated in online forums and family pleas. Today, Whitley, Goodman, and Dillon Swearingen walk uncharged, their lives shadowed by suspicion but untouched by conviction. Whitley grappling with job instability and public scorn, Dillon entangled in assaults, including one on Christian's sister. Christian's death remains officially suicide per multiple agencies, but his family's quest endures. A new grand jury possibly on the horizon if fresh evidence surfaces. Relief eludes all as the question hangs like fog. Was it a young man's despair or the cold hand of betrayal? In the end, the unease lingers, a whisper in the rain, reminding us that some darkness never fully fades.